Yes, ma'am. For external auditors to the board, we had 3 responses. All 3 responses were from very, very qualified firms that have a significant list of clients that are school districts. Rutherford Taylor, I'm actually familiar with all 3 of the firms. I've worked with them all at one time or another. Rutherford Taylor has a very good reputation. The most important thing is they kind of have a niche where they handle districts approximately the size of GISD. It is important to get somebody that understands how a district operates, because a district with 20,000 kids operates completely different than a district with 6,000 kids. So if you have somebody who understands that, understands what the separation of duties should be, understands how the flow of information should go in the district based on the size of the district, they can not only give you an audit, they can all give you an audit and they'll give you an opinion, but they can also make recommendations for streamlining or improving communications. One of the things that I would recommend, and that is that the board form an audit committee. And that the audit committee consists of 2 members of the board and the superintendent. And that audit committee meet periodically with the auditors, not in the presence of the CFO or the assistant superintendent of finance. Whoever's in my position does not need to be there. This needs to be straight from the auditors to your ears. But I would strongly recommend that you consider an audit committee.
Yes, I agree. We have talked about committees a few times now. I think that would be definitely something that we should do. Is there anyone that would want to be on the committee?
I volunteer.
I would like to serve.
Okay. Do you want 2 or 3, Sharon? Just 2, do you think?
You just said 2, yes.
2. Okay, so Roger and Mike had just said that. Bonnie?
She can be an alternate.
And you can
Sure,
be
that's fine.
And then,
Alternate.
okay, I'll put you as alternate. Okay. Everybody's okay with that?
Yes. You said that you reached out to 3 different you reached out to 3 different CPAs?
3, we reached out to everyone. We did a general advertisement. We had 3 audit firms respond to that, which is fairly common. Most of them try to stay within their geographic area or within the size of the districts that are proposed.
So they are within our size?
Well, actually, one of the 3, I think it was Whitley Penn. Whitley Penn is out of Fort Worth, and they really do districts that are between about 10 and 25,000. That's where their focus is. The company Patillo, I don't know them very well, but in looking at their list of clients, most of their clients were a little bit larger, once again, about 10 to 20,000 kids. Rutherford Taylor handles from very small districts up to about 10 to 15,000. But their wheelhouse, their niche is districts that are between about 5 and 10,000, which is where you fall.
And there's a rubric, right, that you use to decide what your recommendation is going to be. And
Right. The RFQ contains about 15 scoring points. And it has to do with the expertise, the training, the number of years' experience, how they're going to look at the audit, who's going to give how much time to performing the audit. Are you going to be working with a junior, a senior, a manager, or a partner? And those are all in there, and those we go through and score. In a district this size, frankly, you want the partner in here. This is not something that you need a junior or somebody that's fresh out of college to look at. You need someone with a little more experience.
Any other discussion? Can I get a motion?
I move the Rutherford Taylor obtain as the GISD as the outside audit firm to complete yearly audit.
add the audit committee onto that. It's up to you.
And also add an audit committee.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Did you have discussion?
No, did you include that audit committee with that same,
Yeah, he just added to it.
okay.
With a motion by Roger and a second by Bonnie, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 I oppose.
Okay.
I don't oppose the audit committee, but I oppose Rutherford Taylor.
Okay, should we separate those? Or just leave it as, okay. So 6-1. Okay, at this time, we are going to move to tax notes, correct? Discussion on tax notes?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to preface this with the why?
Sure.
So, I'm asking to go over this again, after we've been presented it a couple of times, just because the more I thought about $1.2 million coming out of our M&O fund for 10 years with no relief from that, I had a little bit of heartburn over it. And then I was approached by a few people who want us to at least consider a bond. And so I've asked Mr. Shield to present the intent to reimburse again, and just a little different, just to kind of explain it for you guys. A tax note cannot be rolled into a bond. It is out of the M&O, which impacts all of our operations, our funds that we pay our teachers with, and it's just a heavy price to pay for 10 years. As Mr. Shield has showed us, we can do it, but I'm having some heartburn on that. So I want to open the discussion up again, and then wherever we lie, that's where we'll move forward. The intent to reimburse is going to come out of our general fund initially.
General fund balance.
The fund balance initially, but would be reimbursed through a bond effort.
Correct.
In the event that a bond effort was not able to be passed, we could, after that failed bond attempt, could roll everything into a tax note the next week. So even if we were to do an intent to reimburse, go forward to pay for certain things through our fund balance, a bond did not pass, we would still be able to do a tax note, like I said, the week after, to reimburse our fund balance and carry that note through the M&O. So go ahead and present, please. I'm sure I covered all your high notes, but
Yeah, I think you probably did.
did you want to comment then?
Yeah, I got one thing.
I'm sorry.
I like both ideas, don't get me wrong. The only disagreement I would have is that taking out a fund balance. I like both of them, go for another bond, but though, that's the only issue I got, it would take money at that fund balance. With the way the government's going right now, that's the only thing that's the little holding point right there with me.
Do we have the list, again, that's what's going on the tax maintenance note
It's included in our packet?
that we could,
No, I didn't, it's in board book, but can I read it to you real quick? So, the LP Waters abatement, the replacement of the door frames and the fixtures on the doors and to paint it, the Travis Old Fieldhouse renovation, engineering and assessment of LP Waters, which would be 2 years of assessments of the infrastructure under the building. LP Waters portables, which are the 3 restrooms we spoke about, the girls, the boys, and the adults. The GMS portables, including ramps, fences, sidewalks. The boilers for the high school. 5 buses, which is 4 regular ed and 1 special ed. The special ed cameras that Mr. Livingston and the board asked us to add to all classrooms in special ed. The police vehicles to let us give vehicles to the 9 officers that you guys approved last year. the HVAC replacement, and the electrical main switch at HEC. And then there's a contingency fund.
And then the elevator?
Oh, I'm sorry, the elevator is, yes. It's $100,000, and the elevator is at the high school.
How much is
The
it?
elevator for the stadium. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
How much is it for the police officers' cars?
$20,000 times 3, so $60,000.
Are those officers, do they have a main campus or do they travel from campus to campus?
They have a main campus, but if they're called to another campus, they do need to get there. And if we have kids in the neighborhood that they need to get to, so, and they do transport. So,
And the 5 buses, that's not an immediate need right now, right? So would that be something that we could not have on the note and do it, because we already have budgeted out to purchase 4 buses each year. So could we not wait on that?
yeah, we don't have it budgeted, that's a loan.
I mean, you know, a
Right.
loan, we have
So
it
it
to
could
do
be
a
this
loan.
loan or that loan. We do believe that a maintenance tax note will be at 5%. And the loan we just got for the other 4 buses were 7?
6.75, I think.
Yeah, so they were.
You'll get a much better rate on the maintenance tax notes than you will if you go out and just do a loan for the purchase of the buses.
And one of the things that we've discovered with the buses too, while they're under warranty, and if I misspeak, help me, if they're under warranty, we can't touch them. We have to let the authorized warranty people to do it. So like, the seat alarm, the horn didn't go off, but the seat alarm did. That's a warranty, so that bus would have to be out of commission until the people that do the warranty can fix it. So just because we have buses doesn't mean they're all functioning. So the 4-year plan, the plan to purchase 4 a year, so we could put it down to 4 because that's in your budget. So that could happen. We could lower it.
Do we have any idea about how many more buses we're going to need as within the next 2 years with the way that the district is growing?
It depends on if the board decides to change the radius of the routes. So right now, we transport anyone that isn't an eyesight of the school. So 2 weeks ago, you received a memo that gave you communities around us, 1 mile, 2 mile, and eyesight of the door. So it will be the board's recommendation. It will impact, the less routes we have will impact positively the fuel and transportation costs. But the question would be, I know that you have also said that after the demographer report comes out in a few months, we might look at, what we're doing with those demographics that are being added to. So I'm not sure if we want to respond to different routes now. My recommendation would be till we get the demographer report and see where our majority of the students are and redo the routes then. So, but you have the information if you choose to make that decision, and of course we could put that on the board agenda.
Have we had to increase the time that students sit on buses this year?
Yes, we have.
And that's a significant,
With the fewer buses, fewer drivers make us sit on buses longer. You're right. You're exactly right.
and we were on like an 18-year plan to get rid of the older buses after 18 years. I don't want to drive a car that's probably 18 years old or 19 years old. And I just really think we need to be making sure that we keep up with what we set out to do with the plans to make sure that we have newer buses
Right.
in the district.
Right. We would like to continue that 10-year plan, but to your point, we could look at 4 instead of,
How much were the 5 buses? How much is that again?
it's $658,000.
One of those is special ed.
Yes, sir.
special ed.
Mhm. And remember, our special ed numbers increased 150 this year, and we expect that to continue to increase.
So are these buses, we're wanting to purchase those and, expecting that we're gonna grow?
There
Or
too.
are they to replace? So we're already doing 4 a year, so is this gonna put it 9?
These are your 4 for next year.
Okay, so we're not going to do, we're gonna put it on a maintenance tax note and not the note that we have with the bank. Is that what we're
If that's what you
wanting
choose
to
to
do?
do. If that's what you choose to do, yes.
So we've done a bank note 2 years in a row. The first year is, it's one note, but the second year is not. It's a second note, correct?
Right.
It's a totally different
Right.
note.
So we have
And,
2 notes out right now.
and they were both great interest rates. That was one of the reasons why we did it, right?
The first one was a great rate, 4.5%.
No, it was, yeah, 4.5.
And then by the time we received the buses and got approval for the loan, it was 6.5, you said 6.75.
over,
So the
yes.
second one was way higher.
Does that note come out of our M&O?
Yes.
It does, okay.
But I could, the spreadsheet I sent you guys on Friday night, we can play with that. So I'll do what you just said, a couple of numbers, we can look at that, and lower to 4 buses, is that what I hear you saying? I mean, you guys send me a note on how you want to modify it, because you all received the spreadsheet Friday night, so just send me how you want to modify it, and then we can go from there.
I think she's trying to say, is it necessary? Are the buses necessary? Are they necessary for the growth that we have right now?
Yes. Because
But
we
this
haven't
is part
replaced
of the
bus
plan that we were initially going with.
The buses.
We're just, you're just wanting to put them on a maintenance tax note versus a regular bank note.
Yes, ma'am.
And to that point, if we wanted to do a tax note for just the buses right now, we could do that, correct, Mr. Shield? We don't have to have, does it have to be all or nothing? Or is it, what, go ahead and explain that.
You could, but you're getting to a point, one of the reasons you're gonna get a better rate is because the principal is higher.
Okay,
If you take it down to where the maintenance tax note, instead of being 5 million plus is 1 million, you're gonna see your interest rate go up.
So,
It's just not an attractive an instrument.
so it's better if we leave it the way original, the first time we talked about, leave it the same as that, was be better that way? When we first listed everything on the tax note.
Right.
If
That's
we-
probably would get the most, attract the most interest, and probably get you the best tax rate.
Okay.
Here's something that I thought of the other day. If we went with the maintenance tax notes now, and I think the term on those is 10 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we went for a bond sometime in the future, maybe next year, just throwing that out as an example. We spent 4.4 million of our fund balance already for the architectural work that we did on the plans for the schools. The bond program reimburses that 4.4 million, would reimburse that 4.4 million. We could take that reimbursement, it goes into the general fund, and pay off half of the maintenance tax note, cut our payments in half, and save ourselves some money that way.
can we do that?
And we're not impacting our fund balance. I agree with Mr. Livingston. I don't want to draw that fund balance down, because something can happen in Austin, and we can be in a heap of hurt.
That has happened to us, not that we were, but because we were fiscally sound. A lot of the school districts around the state of Texas were really hurting because they spent their fund balance, and they had very little money in there to do what they needed to do. So
Well,
that
and
has
speaking
happened.
of, we had districts around us that were borrowing money to make payroll.
Okay, I just wanted to revisit it again, just to
Understood.
make sure that we all understood that it was
I'm glad.
1.2 million for 10 years out of M&O. And so, okay,
I just.
May I ask a clarification on the intent to reimburse? So we have a legislative piece that is going to determine if bonds can only be rolled out on even years. So if we went that route and the legislation passed, then we would be locked in and having to wait until November of '24, is that correct?
That's correct.
Jim, I want to clarify. I think what you told me was every November.
Well, I've heard every November, the uniform election date in November.
Yes, sir.
I have not heard
Yes, sir.
I haven't
in
heard.
conjunction with the general election. I think I just heard that it has to be on the uniform election date in November.
That's what I heard.
It's every November, it's not an even
Every-
year, it's every
It is-
November.
it is.
They tell you, people, like how some school districts going, it failed in November, they trying to go in May, they stopped it from going back to back.
Yes.
It's only in November now.
Correct.
So the 1.2 million each year is what we would have to pay, right?
That's correct.
Well, the
So
I'm sorry.
what would it look like if we just pay for the things as the need comes?
Well, like he said, the reason why the tax note is, we could get a better rate is that it's a substantial amount, and people that would do the tax note for us would give us a better rate based on the amount in the tax note.
So what I'm saying, if you're gonna go and pay $1 million a year, then you're gonna have all this interest, where if you took, okay, well, the bowlers are 600,000, we're gonna do those this year. Next year, we're gonna spend 400,000 on buses. Would that not be, and then you're not committed to that 1.2 million every year,
So I'm gonna
plus
say,
interest?
so I'm gonna say a couple of things. The interest we gain for the money we get to deposit on maintenance tax note is equal to the interest we're going to pay. Just for one clarifier. But we would only pay interest the first 3 years, so that would be 351,000 on top of the bus loans that we have now. So we do 351, 351, 351, and then 1.267 the fourth year. And then in hopes that a bond would pass by then, we could pay back into fund balance the 4 million. And then use fund balance to pay this off early. So, I mean, it's kind of like a circle of switching money, but ask me another question if that didn't make sense.
One of the reasons why it's so high is not because of the boilers or the buses, it's because of the construction we're doing at the 6th grade center and the portables at or at the middle school. That's a majority of it, and that's the reason why we even considered a tax note to begin with.
And don't forget LP water restrooms.
And yes.
I mean, can we stick those kids with another 2 or 3 years of what they have now? And it's like, not really, don't want to. So,
Yeah,
everything that we're doing is needed, it's on the list for a reason.
My point was only to buy the time to see if we wanted to go out for a bond in November. And then if that wasn't something you wanted to do, then of course the tax note is what, I feel we should do. If we were to do the intent to reimburse, the portables at the middle school would fall off. You wouldn't want to put portables on a bond. It would have to be what we're doing with the stuff at the 6th grade and the boilers and, those things would be on a bond effort as well as maybe a middle school. And that just came from the idea of paying that much money every year and several people asking about going out for a bond. So, there is rumblings about that. I don't know if it's enough to get a bond passed, but there is a lot of rumbling about that. So, and with us looking at the other location for the middle school, it would be something I think more of the community would be behind.
I'm not sure we could say
It
that.
seems to me that the intent to reimburse has no downside, because we could always switch the other direction if we went out to a bond and it didn't pass.
The
But we
one,
couldn't go back the other way.
I think the one sticking point for Roger and Mike is that it does reduce our fund balance initially. So if we were to start these projects, we would pull from fund balance, reducing it, and then we don't get our money from the state until December, basically. And so our fund balance would reduce to what, 3 million? And then, around 3 million, and so then, it's too low. I mean, we're pulling from fund balance to pay for a lot of our things initially in the school year until we get reimbursed by the state, and the reservations are what happens if we don't get that money, and what happens if we don't get, you know, it could cause some serious problems for us if it were to reduce that much. So yes, I agree. I think that it's definitely something, it could be a win-win, you know, because we would still get the things that we needed if the bond were not to pass through the tax note, except for the unknown, which is what happens if we don't get our money from the state. And that's a big one, especially considering that 2 of our board members have experienced something similar to that. 3 board members.
Can I just add one thing? Everything you said, I agree with. Things that have to be done, LP Water's abatement, $70,000. Replacement of the doors, $90,000. T6 renovation, again, that's our building that we're just adding walls to make classrooms, $1.660. The engineering for LP Waters is $10,000. Let's say not portables. Boilers, $400,000. Sped cameras, $125,000. HVAC is $1 million, to your question. We're funding for HVACs that are out now and looking to possibly next year. Elevator is $100,000. So we could say those are the ones that have to happen and see what that dollar amount is and see what kind of interest rate that is. We could see if we took those off, how much that would be percentage-wise to the loan percentage. But Jim just said, the higher the dollar, of course, the loan you get, the better interest rate. But we could calculate the rate out.
Yeah, I mean, within a range. I mean, 11 million is not going to get you any better rate than 10 million. But 8 million would get you a lot better interest rate than 1 million. So it would be, the other thing I had kind of understood was that most of these projects, everything on that list, had to move pretty quick. So there's not, I mean, we're going to be buying it one way or the other, almost from the word go. I think Greg's going to want to issue POs the minute we get when we know how we're going to proceed. So that's if we're going to spend it that quick, it's either going to come out of maintenance tax notes or it's going to come out of fund balance. You really don't have a choice unless there's projects in there that you just simply aren't going to do. But I don't know that that's, I'd understood they're all high priority.
Well, I'm just gonna say, you know, I was against the 4 million for the drawings. And I think if the board as a whole would have known that the HV was going to be needed right now for 1 million and the boilers and stuff, maybe wouldn't have spent the $4 million, because we spent $4 million on drawings. That's just a waste of money. And that money could have went to fund all these projects that we're needing to fund. So we can't go in with this tax note or whatever thinking, oh, we're gonna get a bond to pass. There's no guarantee. People aren't gonna vote for the bond as it was presented. It's gonna have to be different. And, you know, it may be too soon in November. You don't know, so we have to think, how many years are we gonna be able to pay this note back, and what can we afford right now? Not thinking that we could have the bond, get reimbursed for the 4 million. You need to treat it as, what do we have now and what can we afford to do now, and not try to rely on getting a bond passed.
And,
Go ahead. You go ahead.
We agree 100%. These items were on the 10-year plan. We knew they were coming. That has been in your projection plan when you approved it. The boilers, remember when the freeze happened, shut down our water, we were shocked, amazed, astonished that the boilers came back up. So we are buying time on those. The freeze did cause the boilers. Never would we anticipated the elevator at the stadium going out. And that closes down the stadium if we don't get that fixed. So I think the elevator was on 3 more years out, and the boilers were 2 years out. But unfortunately, emergencies happen and cause it. But it is on your
Exactly,
but-
emergencies come up, and I don't want to deplete our fund balance to barely anything, you know, because you never know when something major is going to come up.
Is there any more discussion?